Let me give you some property management supply houses, just in case you wanted to do all the property management yourself. And by the way, I have nothing to do with these companies. I don't get paid by these companies. This would be just an example only. Wilmar.com, Century Supply, CenturySupply.com, Home Depot, they have a multifamily division. By the way, so does Lowe's online, so you can set up an account there. If you have multifamilies, they actually give you a little bit of a discount if you go through there as opposed to buying them at the stores. That would be a good start for that. I would check those out. You'll notice that multifamily has a whole world in and of itself for maintenance and maintenance supply houses. They have certain products in there that are designed for the multifamily industry because they're durable, they're price or cost efficient, so they make a lot of sense. This isn't something that you'd buy off the shelf at a Home Depot. This is specifically made for the apartment market. A little bit more durable, and the price is adjusted a little bit, so it may be worth it for you to check those out. I never talked about the actual maintenance guy, the maintenance person, or guy or girl, because I've had maintenance women. You need to check into the idea of what is appropriate in that area, such as workers' compensation, which is an insurance that you're going to put in place for an employee, not a subcontractor, but an employee, or an independent contractor, but an employee, and how you're going to pay that person. What type of benefits are you going to offer? Vacation, retirement, medical insurance, things like that. I think you want to have your maintenance person as a utility person or utility player, somebody that's well-rounded at a lot of things, somebody that has the opportunity to do electrical work, drywall repair, plumbing repair, things like that, okay? Now, that's your maintenance guy. I want to kind of come back and start to talk about, again, the generalities of property management and the importance of putting in a Crime Stoppers program. I don't know if you guys have these in Canada, but with Crime Stoppers, you do. Crime prevention or Crime Stoppers programs are very good because they let kind of the public in or your tenants in on patrolling or putting another eye to your property. And I think it's a smart idea. Set up crime watch programs in your area. It gets the tenants involved. You have regular meetings. And the tenants or the selected tenant that is going to be running that is going to be working hand in hand with law enforcement. One of the things that they do is they do site walkthroughs and they check things like doors and windows and locks and lighting. You should ask, should you participate in a fire safety program? Those fire safety programs kind of run along the same way. I think it's important for you to maybe consider that as well, to have your tenant base get involved with that. Now you might say, well, John, I own a single family house that I'm renting out. Wouldn't that be a little bit overkill to have the tenant be a crime watch situation for the single family house? Well, it would probably be for that neighborhood, okay? It wouldn't be just for the single family house, it'd be for the neighborhood. If there's not one there, you might suggest to that tenant or maybe somebody in that area that they start a crime watch program. A couple of these ideas I've been giving you gives you, the owner or the property manager, a little bit of leverage here. You notice that I'm having the tenant clean the carpets upon move out. You notice that I'm having the tenant pay for any painting that's additional to normal wear and tear. Here, I'm having the tenants or the surrounding area help you in watching out for crime or detecting any fire hazards. I think that's a good practice to get into. One of the biggest questions I get with property management and with ownership is the type of insurance that I should be carrying. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I think it's important to meet with your insurance agent every 6 months. Basically, what you're going to have is some type of liability insurance, basic broad replacement coverage. What does this mean? You could insure your property for the dollar amount that you have into it. You bought a $50,000 house, you could insure it for $50,000. The problem comes in if a tornado comes by, knock on wood, this never happens. Has anybody been involved in a tornado here? They're pretty phenomenal to watch. I remember seeing one in college, and it took an oak tree, like huge, and just snapped it like a toothpick. No issue, no problem. But they're devastating. If for some reason something like that, knock on wood that never happens, but something like that does happen and it destroys the house, it's probably going to cost more than $50,000 to replace the house. So what you go after is replacement cost coverage. Now, replacement cost coverage may cost you a little bit of money, and that is going to fluctuate based on the cost to replace that house. So you want to make sure that you're talking with your insurance agent on what is appropriate for you. I think the challenge investors walk into today is, number one, when they're buying a house significantly below market, do they insure it for the purchase price, or do they insure it for the replacement cost value? I guess that would depend on how much the coverage is going to differ in price. I would definitely weigh that out. Number two, when you buy a property today in 2012 and you have that $50,000 coverage on it because that's what you bought it for, and you have that same coverage on it for 10 years, and now the house 10 years later is worth $150,000 or $200,000, you could be significantly underinsured. So that's why I think it's very important for you to visit with that insurance agent, even by phone, every 6 months. I think it's a good habit to get involved in. Now, you might have general liability or general hazard insurance for your house that'll cover like fire or a tornado, or if somebody trips and falls on your property, that type of thing. But in certain areas, you may be required to get additional insurance. Like, for instance, if your property is located in what is called a floodplain. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers determines what the floodplains are in the United States. If they've determined that your property is in a floodplain, then you're going to have to get flood insurance. It's not really a requirement unless you have a bank that has financed the property. By the way, if you own the property outright, you don't have to get any insurance. It's not a requirement for you to get any. Is it a smart idea? Yes. But no one's forcing you to get insurance. But should you? Absolutely. But flood insurance, especially if you have a loan, is something that's going to be a requirement. Flood insurance is expensive. So if you do have a property in a floodplain, note that if you're getting flood insurance on it, you're going to be paying big dollar for that. Question?
If you're in say a floodplain, is that just part of your due diligence to find that out, or is that something that like a previous owner has to tell you?
Well, I mean, the previous owner probably won't tell you that because it's probably not something that comes up when you're selling the property. When you run title on it and title work on it, that's one of the things that they're checking. That is this property in a floodplain. Number two, your insurance agent will definitely tell you whether or not that's the case, whether that property's in a flood plain, because that's going to affect its insurance risk. So with those two factors, you should know pretty quickly, okay? Now, if you ask that as a fact of the property, is this property in a floodplain, and they know that it is, and they don't tell you, or they tell you no, that's against the law. They have to disclose that it's in a floodplain. So if that was your question, then yes. See, if I don't answer your question, I want you to clarify right away, right? Or you're going to have to, I'm going to have to remove you from the cruise ship. Remember, you told me that story, how you got removed from a cruise ship? Yeah, he told me. He told me. Oh, you don't want the folks at home to know that on TV? I see. I got you. I'm just kidding. So you may have to have a special type of insurance. If you're looking at properties in Florida, you may consider hurricane insurance because they have been known to have hurricanes throughout Florida and here in this state as well, and all along the Gulf Coast and eastern seaboard. those are hurricane-prone states. So talk with your insurance agent there about that. Umbrella insurance. Umbrella insurance is something that is a comprehensive insurance policy that you would get personally. So you might have general liability or hazard insurance on your house, and dealing with that insurance agent, they may talk you into an umbrella type of policy. This would cover you personally for anything that you do. Maybe I shouldn't say anything in the insurance industry, but a lot of things that you do. If you're off traveling, if you hurt somebody, you run into somebody with your car or rental car, or let's say that your car insurance lapsed and you've got umbrella insurance, that typically would cover you. But umbrella insurance is kind of a coverall or safety net that would cover you if other types of insurance isn't covering you with a certain situation, okay? Renter's insurance, we talked about that a little bit with the idea that your tenants should have the suggestion of getting renter's insurance and understanding the idea that their personal contents is not covered by your general liability or hazard insurance for your property. Very important to understand. And then workman's compensation. I wanted to put this on there one more time, because if you have a property management company that sends a maintenance person out to your property and they fall and get hurt, number one, you should be covered by the hazard insurance or general liability insurance that you have by the property, but also that employee of the property management company should have workman's comp insurance. As a matter of fact, you as an owner of a property, when you're doing a deal with a property management company and signing a contract with them, one of the things that you should have in there, the language you should have in there, is the fact that they need to provide to you a certificate of insurance, adding you, the owner, as additionally insured on that property. Does everybody see that? Okay? I think it's a good practice to get into. Now remember, we talked about raising the NOI. We started off the 2 days of property management talking about how important it is when you've got a property manager in place that you've hired, or if you're doing this yourself, how important it is for you to raise the NOI of that property. And you can do that a lot of different ways. You can do that by increasing the income, laundry facilities, storage units, parking, increasing the rents, getting a percentage of contract services. What do I mean by that? Well, maybe if you give enough work to a snow plower or to someone cutting the grass or landscaping, that you get a % discount or a rebate at the end of the year. Something to think about there that will kind of drive your NOI. I really believe that you should be considering things that are going to lower expenses or consolidate. Let's say that you bought 3 houses in the area of Atlanta, Georgia. By giving that same person that's cutting the grass more work, you should require them to give you a per unit discount. Okay? A per unit discount. Always have your taxes assessed every year. Well, they're going to be assessed, but protest them. Make sure that you're paying or not paying too much in taxes. I think it's very important that you focus on that in driving those costs down. We talked about the master meter and sub-meter option. I think that's important. I also want you to think about placing calls to competition. Not only should you know your competitors on who you're renting against, but you should know the competitors that you have selected as subcontractors, or at least your property manager should know that. I think that's important. So I want to give you a couple of things to think about as well, and then I'm going to give you some property management sites that you can use as a resource, okay? The first one is Section 8. If you are interested in Section 8 or subsidized housing, the first place that I would start would be HUD.gov, HUD.gov. The second one would be considered more of a project-based subsidized program, which is called HAP, Housing Assistance Program. This is also done through HUD, but it's not voucher specific, meaning the individual doesn't get a voucher and go to any house or apartment that accepts Section 8, this is where they approve the whole project, the whole 12 units for subsidized housing. Now, the tenants still have to qualify for that, but it might be something that you want to look into based on the project, based on the location. FHA has a lot of different programs. Somebody asked the question, where do you go for grants and things? FHA, for instance, rehab loans or grants to fix up properties or even to buy properties, such as the 403C program, is all done through FHA. So if you go to the Federal Housing Authority website, you'll see all these programs and grants that are set up that you may be able to take advantage of for that. So I'd look into that. Specialized buying. You may want to consider buying in areas in which the demographics are such, in which there's low-income housing or maybe housing for the elderly or things like assisted living. That is a big, big item, and it's bigger and bigger as we move forward. The demographic of baby boomers that are retiring are huge, and you want to be considerate of that as you are in property management, or as, more importantly, you're buying those investment properties in the different areas, especially in areas like the South where people are retiring more, Arizona, Florida, things like that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these resources up here for a while. These are property management resources that you can call, like the National Apartment Association and National Association of Residential Property Managers. And feel free to check out their website. They've got a lot of different property management sources on that. You can check that out, and that will give you a lot of resources. Any questions or final questions with property management? You have one? Okay, let's get that answered.
I see everybody taking pictures of notes.
That's right. That's right. They don't handwrite.
They're not writing it down.
They're not writing it. Their hands don't hurt. Yes. Somebody is saying in the class we've got a rule that you have to state your question or statement on the mic, I guess. I don't know. Yes, question.
Hello? Okay. I have just 3 really quick questions here. You know, at home, when you go into a tenant's property, you have to give notice. Do those same rules apply here?
Yes, depending on the state. Sometimes it's 24 hours, sometimes it's 48.
Okay.
You typically have to give notice upon entrance unless it's an emergency basis.
Okay. And if you have a multi-unit, can you have different rents for different tenants in the same common or like-kind units?
Yeah, if you've determined that you're increasing a rent because you have higher financial risk, you can certainly do that. Or if you've got different lease terms and your occupancy is different, such that the occupancy drops and you drop the rent a little bit, you absolutely can do that. You just can't have different rents for different groups of people based on race, creed, national origin, all that stuff.
Okay, then my last question has to do with if I have a $100,000 property that I'm renting out and I'm charging $1,500 in rent, the property management fees will be 10% of that. If I have a rental property that I paid, let's say, I don't know, it's worth $25,000, so I'm renting it out for $500 a month, and the property is in a really undesirable neighborhood, will I get the same service from the property manager if he has to, let's say, go collect those rents with a gun? You know, I'm just trying to see, like, are they going to charge me if it's more?
I can't speak for all property management companies, but I would be willing to bet that if you had more of a liability or a risk on the property manager's part in daily property management activities, you would probably be paying more for that service.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay? No other questions? Yep.
Are there any checks and balance systems for property managers? I'm asking this because I actually know of someone who had a property and he was not seeing it often. And one day he went down there and looked at it, and there was somebody there. He knocked on his door, and
Yeah.
who
I
are
got
you?
it.
And he said, that's
Sam,
somebody's cousin.
Sam, I got a great checks and balances. So what you're telling me is the property manager's been telling you the place is vacant. He's been renting out to somebody collecting the check.
Correct.
I've got a great checks and balances for you. What I'd like you to do is get that property management contract into place and have the person that checks up on the property manager and the property be the real estate agent that got you into that property in the first place. That's a great system to set up. Okay? Yes?
Yeah, when you're looking at your monthly income statement that you get from your property manager every month, what are some of the key metrics that you'll be keying in on? And
Yeah.
some of the red flags that we should take note of? I mean, do you look at the loss to lease especially, or price per square foot? What are the
Yeah.
metrics that you're looking at?
Well, loss to lease, let me just explain that. That's lease that is put in place where the market rent is $750 and you're getting $725. That's like a $25 loss to lease. Or somebody that would be evicted and you don't have income coming in on that particular unit or lease for that balance of that term. The other thing that I would look at primarily is I match the rent rolls up and what the potential rental income should be with the actual collected rental income. And I'm looking at that matrix on a monthly basis, what the income that's coming in and how that's fluctuated over the months. Typically, January and February are the toughest months where you see a little bit of fluctuation down. Why? People are paying the bills from the holidays. So areas like that. July is another hard month. I wouldn't say it's the hardest, but it's definitely in the top 3 or 4 because it's summer activities and just, people have spent money that they don't have for some reason or another. So I typically prepare for and look especially in those months for those rental or income fluctuations. I'm always keeping my eye on the net operating income. I want to make sure that I'm obtaining the goal that I have for the 12 months. I'm analyzing that every single month and making sure that's a standard. If I see a major drop-off, it's usually because of a specific reason. The property manager, the tenant base, something, and I want to rectify that issue immediately. Okay? Good question. Yes, Mark.
Concerning utilities, John, I think some utilities, there are some hookup fees and cancellation fees. Some can be problematic to deal when tenants come in and out, like telephone, I would assume. So any wisdom?
Yeah, here's what I'd like you to, in Chicago, I'm going to be teaching about a credit called a utility deposit credit that you don't want to miss out on. I would encourage you to be there so you'll learn that strategy. But with utilities, I would recommend that when you buy an apartment building, smaller one even, 6 units, 4 units, you go to the utility company and you ask for the landlord system. You might even be able to, or a landlord policy, you might even be able to get that on a single family house that you rent out. So when a tenant moves out, that account immediately switches over to you, so you don't go with a time period where the utilities are turned off with that property. When utilities are turned off, bad things happen. So you want to make sure that those utilities are constant. The other thing that you want to do is make sure that you're communicating to the tenant that they're responsible for the utilities, not only in verbal communication, but make sure you have that in their lease, and how important it is for the day of move-in for them to put the utilities in their own name.
And the last question is pertaining to metrics. If you were to give me your three key metrics to
Eat right. Right, okay, got it, right.
Your key 3 metrics that you would communicate and expect from your property management team.
The number 1 key metric is NOI. Manage that on a monthly basis and achieve NOI goals for the year, number 1. Number 2, make sure that you're diligent in everything that you do, whether it's painting the front door or fixing the broken window, that activity translates into a higher income or an expense savings. And then finally, number 3, you've got to love what you do. So make sure you're choosing a property manager that's excited about their work, enthused about their work, and wants to do a good job for you, the owner. So?
So.
What exactly are you
try-
looking
I'll
for?
try again. If you were to measure your property manager on 3 metrics, what would they be?
Okay, you changed your question a little bit. You were a little more
miscommunicated.
specific.
I'm French, I'm sorry.
I'm not going to hold that against you, my friend. The number one metric beyond all other is net operating income. There may not be two behind that. If that property manager is not measured on monthly net operating income, nothing else matters. There doesn't have to be 3. It's just 1. The most important thing you can do if you want to be a real estate investor and have good property management is have that property manager measured and compensated on how good that net operating income is, monthly and annually.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, that kind of wraps us up. I want to thank you for enjoying, hopefully you enjoyed, for being here for 2 wonderful days of property management. Thank you very much. We will see you at the next event.